There is one thing no one ever tells you. The more available you are, the less attractive you become. In the next 10 minutes, let's take back your power. I hear this a lot. Rumi, I do everything for him. I check on him constantly. I adjust myself for him. I gave up parts of my life for him and he still doesn't appreciate me. Here's the hard truth. The moment you place all your emotional chips on one person, you stop being a person to them. You become an accessory. You become predictable, and predictable things don't hold value. Think of it like investing every cent you own in a single stock. You watch it every hour. You panic when it dips. You celebrate when it rises. At that point, the stock isn't your asset anymore. It owns you. To reclaim your power, you need one core skill: emotional detachment. I came across Adler's work during a period when I was doing the exact opposite of what I'm about to describe. Refreshing a conversation thread at midnight, rewriting a message 4 times before sending it, telling myself it was care when really it was fear. What stopped me cold was a concept he called the separation of tasks, not as a technique, as a completely different way of seeing what's yours and what isn't. Whether he replies to your message, that's his task. Whether you spiral into anxiety because he didn't, that's yours. A woman with a high-value mindset does not cross that line. When he goes quiet, low-value thinking sounds like, did I say something wrong? Does he not love me anymore? What did I do? High-value thinking sounds like, he's probably busy, or he's not interested. Either way, I have a book to read, work to do, a life to live. My happiness doesn't depend on what lights up his screen. When you detach, you cut the remote control he has over your emotions. And once you've cut that wire, you've already shifted the dynamic. Think about the last time you really wanted a reservation somewhere. Not a casual dinner, but the kind of place with a 3-week wait, where you had to plan around it, where you told people about it before you'd even gone. You built anticipation around it just because it was hard to get. Scarcity doesn't just raise value, it redirects attention entirely. And this isn't manipulation, it's how human desire actually works, whether we admit it or not. Anything constantly available stops being something people reach for. It becomes background, it becomes assumed. If you cancel your plans for him every time he calls, if you reply the second a message arrives, if you bend your whole life around his schedule, you've made yourself over-available. And over-available means undervalued. The mindset shift here is this: stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to earn his attention. Start thinking of yourself as the reward. Your time, your warmth, your presence. These should be earned. They go to people who show up for you, who respect you, who put in the effort. Ask yourself honestly, when did you last say no to a last-minute invitation just because you wanted a quiet evening to yourself? A woman without boundaries is like a house without walls. Anyone can walk in, leave a mess, and walk right back out. Having a high-value mindset doesn't mean being cold. It doesn't mean being cruel. It means having a clear, unshakable set of personal principles and actually holding them. You can be soft, but your softness needs edges. When someone starts running hot and cold on you, when they disappear without explanation, when their words chip away at how you see yourself, your framework needs to activate. And when it does, don't interrogate, don't beg for an explanation, don't cry and demand answers. That only signals that you can be pushed around. Instead, withdraw your emotional investment quietly, completely. He stops texting, you stop waiting. He pulls back, you close your energy and redirect it to yourself. Message you send without a single word. The moment he crossed a line, he lost access to you. And here's what's almost guaranteed to happen. When he senses that you're genuinely prepared to walk away, not as a threat, but as a fact, that's when the panic sets in. That's when he starts reaching back. Here's the dynamic that almost no one talks about. When someone senses you have a real life pulling at you, obligations, interests, people who want your time, they instinctively recalibrate how they treat you. Not because they've become a better person overnight, but because you stop signaling that you'll absorb whatever they give you. You started signaling that you have a standard, and people, almost without realizing it, tend to rise to the standard in front of them, or reveal that they can't. Let me give you a concrete scenario. He goes cold, replied slow down, the warmth disappears. The low-value response, "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Why aren't you talking to me?" The moment you say that, you've handed over every bit of leverage you had. The high-value response, "Live better." Outpiece him. Go to the gym. Take that trip you've been putting off. Pick up a new skill. Post about the life you're actually building, not about the silence he's creating. Your energy should say, "Your absence didn't leave a dent, because my life is full on its own." This kind of quiet indifference is the most devastating counter to emotional manipulation and cold treatment. I want to tell you about a woman who messaged me last February. She'd been completely frozen out, no explanation, no argument, just silence, starting on New Year's Day. For 30 days, she didn't reach out once. What she did instead, she finished a professional certification she'd been putting off for 2 years. She lost 8 pounds, not from stress, she told me, but from actually sleeping through the night again. And she started going to a pottery class she'd bookmarked and forgotten about. When he came back at the end of January, her first feeling wasn't relief, it was irritation that he'd interrupted something. That's the moment she described to me, not triumph, just irritation that her momentum got interrupted. She said she didn't even recognize herself compared to the woman who'd been watching her phone on January 1st. That's what a month of redirected energy looks like in practice. He came back because he'd realized, without anyone telling him, that he no longer had a guaranteed place in her attention. That realization, she said, seemed to matter to him far more than anything she could have said or done in those 30 days. Before we close, I want to say something directly to every woman watching this who's carrying anxiety right now. You are past the age of reshaping yourself around someone's glance, past the age of questioning your worth because of someone's silence. True independence isn't about the number in your bank account, it's about emotional self-sufficiency. It's about growing up internally. There's a specific shift I've watched happen in people, and it's hard to describe until you've felt it yourself. It's the moment when your own company stops feeling like a consolation prize and starts feeling like the baseline. When a quiet evening alone stops being something you fill or escape and starts being something you actually protect. That shift doesn't announce itself. It just arrives one day, usually quietly, and you realize you've stopped measuring your worth in terms of someone else's availability. When you stop being afraid of losing people, you stop making decisions from that fear. And decisions made from a full place look completely different from decisions made from a hollow one. The people around you feel that difference, even when they can't name it. Starting today, try turning your gaze inward. Just a little more. Try being a woman who is a little more indifferent and a lot more in love with herself. Because when you start truly investing in yourself, something shifts. The world softens toward you. The right people start showing up. If you want to leave behind the mental exhaustion this year and build this kind of grounded confidence, subscribe.
Try to be a bit more detached. Love yourself first.
I'm Rumi. Whatever season you're in, I hope you're living it in your own rhythm.